People didn't wake up one day and decide to abandon America's biggest cities. They didn't leave because they failed. They left because the math stopped working, and the future stopped feeling safe. Behind every moving truck is a story no one puts in headlines. Families priced out, workers burned out, communities quietly unraveling. This isn't about politics. It's about survival. And the reasons people are leaving these cities are far deeper than you've been told. Number 10. Jackson, Mississippi. It is often discussed in headlines only when something goes wrong, but rarely is the full picture explained. For decades, the city has been quietly losing residents, and the reasons go far deeper than population numbers. What's happening in Jackson is the result of long-term neglect, structural failures, and a breakdown of trust between residents and the systems meant to support them. The most visible issue has been infrastructure collapse, especially the city's water system. Repeated water crises, boil notices, low pressure, and contamination fears have made basic daily life uncertain. When clean water becomes unreliable, families with options start looking elsewhere, not because they want to leave, but because stability becomes impossible to guarantee. Economic opportunity is another major factor. Jackson has struggled to attract and retain large employers, while many middle-income jobs have disappeared or moved to surrounding suburbs. Young professionals often leave for better-paying work, while long-time residents remain trapped in a cycle of limited job growth and rising living costs. This creates a shrinking tax base, which further weakens public services, a vicious loop that's hard to escape. Crime perception, whether statistically accurate or not, also plays a powerful role. Even when neighborhoods remain tight-knit and resilient, the city's reputation pushes businesses, investors, and families away. This perception gap hurts Jackson just as much as real challenges do. What often gets ignored is why people stay. Many residents remain because of deep family roots, cultural pride, and community strength. Jackson is rich in Black history, civil rights legacy, music, and faith-based networks that outsiders rarely see. Churches, local organizers, and neighborhood leaders continue holding the city together when institutions fail. Jackson isn't being fled because people stopped caring. It's being left behind because too many systems stopped working at once. Until investment, accountability, and long-term planning replace short-term fixes, the quiet exodus will continue, not loudly, but steadily, family by family. Number 9. New Orleans, Louisiana. It is a city the world romanticizes, but for many residents, living there has become increasingly unsustainable. Behind the music, festivals, and historic charm lies a reality that's quietly pushing people out, year after year. The population decline isn't loud or sudden. It's slow, painful, and deeply personal. One of the biggest drivers is cost without corresponding opportunity. Wages in New Orleans lag behind national averages while living expenses keep climbing. Housing costs have surged, especially in neighborhoods once considered affordable. At the same time, insurance premiums, particularly homeowners and flood insurance, have exploded, pricing longtime residents out of the very homes their families have lived in for generations. Infrastructure is another breaking point. Power outages after storms, fragile water systems, and aging roads make daily life unpredictable. Hurricanes and flooding aren't rare emergencies, they're recurring stressors. Each storm brings not just physical damage, but financial and emotional exhaustion. For many families, the question isn't if they'll leave, but when the next disaster makes staying impossible. Economic mobility is limited. Tourism dominates the job market, offering seasonal and service-based work with little long-term security. Professional opportunities outside hospitality are scarce, pushing young graduates to cities where their skills are better rewarded. This drains the city of its future workforce while shrinking the tax base needed to fix long-standing problems. Crime and public safety concerns also play a role, not always because of personal experience, but because of constant instability. When families feel unsure about schools, emergency services, or neighborhood safety, They start looking for certainty elsewhere. Yet, people stay longer than logic suggests. They stay because of culture, family, history, and identity. New Orleans isn't just a place, it's a way of life. That emotional connection makes leaving feel like loss, not opportunity. New Orleans isn't being abandoned because it lacks soul. It's being fled because resilience alone can't compensate for rising costs, fragile systems, and a future that feels increasingly uncertain. Number 08, St. Louis, Missouri. It is a city with deep history, strong neighborhoods, and a cultural legacy that once made it a symbol of Midwestern strength. Yet for decades, residents have been quietly leaving, not because the city lacks potential, but because long-standing structural problems have never been fully resolved. One of the most significant issues is population loss and economic fragmentation. As industries declined and jobs moved outward, opportunity followed the suburbs. This left large parts of the city struggling with vacant homes, underfunded services, and shrinking tax revenue. While some downtown and redevelopment areas have seen investment, many neighborhoods feel left behind, creating a sharp divide between revitalized pockets and neglected communities. Public safety concerns also play a major role. Crime rates, especially violent crime, have shaped national perception, even when many areas remain stable and community-oriented. For families deciding where to settle, perception often matters as much as reality. That fear pushes middle-income households to surrounding counties, accelerating urban decline and deepening inequality. Schools and public services face similar challenges. Underfunding, inconsistent reform efforts, and governance issues have weakened trust in local institutions. When families feel unsure about education quality or emergency services, relocation becomes a rational choice, not an emotional one. Housing adds another layer. While St. Louis remains more affordable than coastal cities, aging infrastructure, property taxes, and maintenance costs in older homes can outweigh low purchase prices. For renters, limited quality options in safe, well-serviced neighborhoods reduce long-term stability. What's often ignored is why many residents stay. St. Louis has strong community ties. Historic neighborhoods, local pride, and grassroots organizations working tirelessly to rebuild. The city's culture, food, music, and resilience are real, but resilience alone cannot replace consistent investment and effective leadership. People aren't fleeing St. Louis because it lacks identity. They're leaving because too many systems stopped moving forward together, making stability feel harder to reach with each passing year. Number 7, Detroit, Michigan. It is often framed as a comeback story, but that narrative hides a more complicated truth. While parts of the city have seen visible investment and renewal, many residents continue to leave because the recovery hasn't reached them. Detroit's population decline isn't about the past alone. It's about uneven progress and fragile stability in the present. The collapse of the auto industry didn't just eliminate jobs. It dismantled an entire middle-class ecosystem. Generations who once relied on stable union wages found themselves without comparable alternatives. While new industries and startups have emerged, they often demand skills or credentials that longtime residents were never given the chance to develop. As a result, economic opportunity feels selective, not shared. Housing tells a similar story. Detroit has some of the lowest home prices in the country, but low prices don't equal low cost. Aging homes require constant repairs, property taxes remain burdensome, and basic services like street maintenance, lighting, and emergency response can vary drastically by neighborhood. For many families, owning a home becomes a long-term liability instead of security. Public services and trust in institutions remain strained. Schools, transportation, and city services have improved in certain areas, yet many neighborhoods still feel forgotten. When progress appears concentrated downtown while outer areas stagnate, residents begin to question whether staying will ever pay off. Crime perception amplified by national media also influences departure decisions. Even as crime rates fluctuate, the city's reputation lingers, affecting insurance rates, business investment, and family choices. Perception alone can be enough to push people toward the suburbs or out of state entirely. Still, Detroit is not empty of hope. Community groups, artists, small business owners, and longtime residents continue rebuilding from the ground up. The city's culture, grit, and identity remain powerful. People aren't leaving Detroit because it lacks heart. They're leaving because recovery feels fragile, unequal, and uncertain, and for many families, stability can't wait for another decade of promises. Number 6, Baltimore, Maryland. It sits at a crossroads of opportunity and frustration. Positioned near Washington, D.C., with major ports, hospitals, and universities, the city should be thriving. Yet for decades, residents have been quietly leaving, not because Baltimore lacks potential, but because too many promises have gone unfulfilled. One of the most persistent issues is economic inequality paired with limited mobility. While sectors like healthcare, education, and government contracting bring money into the region, those benefits don't reach everyone equally. Many neighborhoods remain disconnected from stable jobs, reliable transportation, and quality schools. For working families, proximity to opportunity doesn't matter if access is out of reach. Public safety concerns continue to shape decisions to leave. High-profile crime stories dominate national headlines, reinforcing a perception that affects everything from home values to insurance rates. Even residents who feel safe in their own neighborhoods understand how reputation alone can limit investment, job growth, and long-term stability. Housing adds another layer of pressure. Baltimore has affordable homes on paper, but many properties are old and expensive to maintain. Property taxes are among the highest in the region, discouraging long-term ownership and pushing middle-income residents toward surrounding counties where services feel more reliable for the cost. Trust in institutions has also eroded. Repeated political scandals, slow reform, and inconsistent leadership have left residents skeptical that meaningful change is coming. When people lose confidence in local government, staying becomes a risk rather than a commitment. And yet, Baltimore is far from empty of strength. Its neighborhoods are rich with history, culture, and resilience. Community organizations, artists, and local leaders continue to fight for progress, block by block. People aren't fleeing Baltimore because it's broken beyond repair. They're leaving because living there often feels like carrying extra weight financially, emotionally, and psychologically while waiting for systems to finally catch up with the city's potential. Number 5, Portland, Oregon. Portland, Oregon was once held up as a model for progressive urban living, creative, affordable, and full of opportunity. But in recent years, a quiet exodus has taken place, and the reasons go far beyond politics or surface-level headlines. For many residents, daily life in Portland has become harder to justify. The most immediate pressure is rising cost of living without matching wages. Housing prices and rents surged rapidly, especially during the pandemic, pricing out renters and first-time buyers alike. What was once a relatively affordable West Coast city now demands near big city prices, while salaries in many sectors haven't kept up. For middle-income workers, the math simply stopped working. Public safety and street conditions have also reshaped how people experience the city. Visible homelessness, open drug use, and property crime, especially theft, have changed daily routines. Even residents who support compassionate policies feel caught between empathy and exhaustion. When sidewalks, parks, and downtown areas feel unpredictable, families and small business owners begin looking elsewhere. The local economy adds to the strain. Many small businesses close during extended shutdowns, and recovery has been uneven. Office vacancies remain high, remote work reduced downtown activity, and service sector jobs offer limited stability. For young professionals, Portland increasingly feels like a city with lifestyle appeal, but shrinking long-term opportunity. Trust in local governance has weakened as well. Slow responses to public safety concerns, visible dysfunction, and political infighting have left many residents feeling unheard. When people stop believing problems will be addressed, leaving becomes a form of self-preservation rather than protest. Yet Portland still holds deep emotional loyalty. Its natural beauty, community values, creative culture, and neighborhood connections keep many rooted longer than logic might suggest. People don't leave because they hate the city. They leave because the version they loved feels harder to access. Portland isn't emptying out overnight. It's losing people gradually as everyday frustrations accumulate and the promise of stability quietly fades. Number 4, Chicago, Illinois. It is often described as a city of opportunity, diverse, powerful, and economically important. But beneath its global reputation, Chicago has been quietly losing residents for years. The reasons aren't simple, and they aren't talked about honestly enough. One of the biggest pressures is the cost-tax imbalance. While Chicago remains more affordable than coastal megacities, rising property taxes, sales taxes, and fees have steadily eaten into household budgets. Many middle-class families feel they're repaying more each year while receiving less in return, especially when it comes to schools, public safety, and infrastructure. For homeowners in particular, tax uncertainty makes long-term planning difficult. Public safety concerns also shape decisions. High-profile crime stories dominate national coverage, creating a perception that affects daily life even in relatively stable neighborhoods. Whether residents personally experience crime or not, fear influences where families choose to raise children and where businesses decide to invest. Over time, perception becomes reality by driving people away. Economic inequality adds another layer. Chicago has thriving downtown sectors and corporate hubs, but many neighborhoods remain disconnected from that prosperity. Manufacturing decline, limited job growth in certain areas, and uneven development have left large parts of the city struggling to keep pace. Young professionals often leave for Sunbelt cities where salaries stretch further and taxes are lower. Governance challenges compound these issues. Budget deficits, pension obligations, and political gridlock make long-term reform feel uncertain. Residents worry not just about today's costs, but about tomorrow's financial burden being passed down. Yet Chicago isn't empty of loyalty. Its culture, food, architecture, and community pride run deep. Many people stay far longer than logic suggests because the city feels like home. People aren't fleeing Chicago because it lacks energy or history. They're leaving because the balance between opportunity and burden feels increasingly tilted, and for many families, stability is now easier to find somewhere else. Number 3, New York City. New York, it is still seen as the center of ambition, culture, and opportunity. But behind the skyline, a quiet exit is underway. People aren't leaving because New York lost its magic. They're leaving because the cost of accessing that magic has become unbearable for ordinary lives. The biggest pressure point is cost of living versus income reality. Rent alone has crossed a breaking point. Even middle-class earners, teachers, nurses, office workers, creatives now spend extreme portions of their income just to stay housed. Apartments shrink while prices rise, and moving farther out only adds long commutes and transportation costs. What was once a temporary sacrifice for opportunity has become a permanent financial strain. Taxes and everyday expenses compound the problem. State and city taxes, combined with rising utility bills, groceries, and childcare, leave little room to save. Many residents earn what looks like a strong salary on paper, yet live paycheck to paycheck in practice. The illusion of wealth masks widespread financial fragility. The pandemic accelerated deeper changes. Remote work removed the need to physically stay in the city, while office vacancies drained energy from once busy neighborhoods. Small businesses closed, foot traffic declined, and the sense of momentum that defined New York weakened. For many, the trade-off no longer made sense. Quality of life concerns also matter. Crowding, aging infrastructure, inconsistent public services, and safety concerns, whether real or perceived, push families to reconsider long-term plans. Raising children in the city now feels financially and emotionally overwhelming for many households. Yet people don't leave lightly. New York offers unmatched culture, diversity, creativity, and identity. For many, leaving feels like surrendering a dream they worked years to reach. New York City isn't emptying because ambition died. It's losing people because survival now demands too much sacrifice. When a city built on opportunity becomes accessible only to the wealthy or the exhausted, even the most loyal residents eventually look for space to breathe elsewhere. Number 2, Los Angeles, California. It is still sold to the world as a land of opportunity, creativity, and reinvention. But behind the image of sunshine and success, a growing number of residents are quietly leaving, not because the dream vanished, but because the cost of chasing it has become overwhelming. The most obvious pressure is housing. Rent and home prices in Los Angeles have reached levels that no longer match local wages. Even professionals with stable careers, entertainment workers, designers, technicians, teachers, often spend more than half their income on housing alone. Moving farther from the city center doesn't solve the problem. It simply replaces rent pressure with punishing commutes and transportation costs. Homelessness and quality of life issues have also reshaped daily experience. Encampments, sanitation problems, and visible distress are now part of many neighborhoods. For long-term residents, this isn't just a political issue, it's an emotional one. People feel compassion, frustration, and fatigue all at once, especially when solutions appear slow or ineffective. Economic opportunity has shifted as well. The entertainment industry is more unstable, gig-based, and competitive than ever. Many middle-income jobs lack security, benefits, or predictable income. At the same time, rising taxes, utilities, gas prices, and insurance costs quietly drain what's left after rent. Public safety perception, whether driven by personal experience or media coverage, plays a role too. Even small increases in uncertainty can push families to reconsider raising children in the city long term. Yet people don't leave Los Angeles lightly. They stay for the culture, weather, diversity, and identity. For many, leaving feels like giving up a version of themselves. Los Angeles isn't being abandoned because it lacks opportunity. It's being left because opportunity now comes with constant instability, and for many residents, stability matters more than the promise of fame, sunshine, or another year of barely making it work. Number 1, San Francisco, California. It sits at the top of this list because it represents a broader shift in what urban opportunity now costs. Once a symbol of innovation, creativity, and upward mobility, San Francisco has become a city many people feel forced to leave, not because they failed, but because the system stopped working for anyone outside the top tier. The most overwhelming factor is housing. Rent and home prices have reached levels that even high earners struggle to justify. Teachers, nonprofit workers, service employees, artists, and even many tech workers find themselves priced out. Sharing apartments into middle age, long commutes from distant suburbs, or spending most of one's income on rent has become normalized but unsustainable. Cost of living extends far beyond housing. Groceries, childcare, transportation, utilities, and taxes quietly compound the pressure. A six-figure salary may look impressive, yet many residents live with little financial security once basic expenses are paid. The promise that high income equals high quality of life has broken down. Quality of life issues have also changed how people experience the city. Visible homelessness, open drug use, and property crime affect daily routines and emotional well-being. For residents who once accepted trade-offs in exchange for opportunity, the balance now feels one-sided. Compassion fatigue mixes with frustration as solutions appear slow or ineffective. The tech industry itself has shifted. Layoffs, remote work, and startup instability have weakened the city's economic certainty. When jobs no longer require physical presence, staying in one of the most expensive cities in the world becomes harder to justify. And yet, people don't leave easily. San Francisco still offers unmatched beauty, diversity, culture, and creative energy. Leaving often feels like mourning a version of the city and of oneself that once existed. San Francisco isn't emptying because ambition disappeared. It's losing people because ambition alone can no longer pay the rent, secure a future, or guarantee stability. These cities didn't collapse overnight. They were hollowed out slowly by rising costs, broken systems, and promises that never reached the people who needed them most. The people leaving aren't giving up. They're adapting. They're choosing stability over struggle, certainty over chaos. And the people who stay? They carry the weight of cities still fighting to find their future. At Mindrix, we don't tell you what to think. We show you what's happening beneath the surface. Because understanding the world means looking where others look away. If this story made you pause, question, or recognize something familiar, subscribe to Mindrix. More real stories are coming. No filters, no shortcuts. Just the truth behind the headlines.